Welcome, beautiful soul. I see you. I love you. I'm here with you. Two things before we start today's insight. The first is if you want to dive in deeper, you can go into my website, which I call my online sanctuary. It's www.sandybo.com. Second is I invite you to click the share button below so that we can have more people tune into this message. So, for the past week and a half, I would say, it has been incredibly shifting and transformative for me. And I've had a lot of little shifts leading up into this moment, but no shift that felt like I openly needed to share about it. That desire was there. Typically, when I'm going through these shifts, they feel so sacred that I like to marinate in them for quite a long time. And I would like to withhold them so that I could translate them into sacred texts. But this shift felt so resonating at a visceral, a cellular, a cellular level. And it was so undeniable that I knew that what is happening inside of me within my universe is connected to the vast universe. And that means that if I'm going through this experience, then the chances are very, very high that you're experiencing something similar. And so it felt really important to me to share this message. So the past week and a half, I have been feeling incredibly disoriented. I have felt like, who am I? What am I doing? What role am I playing? Observing my own humanness and asking myself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing it this way? Feeling like any parts of myself that conformed to old ways of being or conformed into old ways that I was programmed as a human to experience my reality had completely shifted. And it's this feeling as if it's almost like you're blindsided and the rug that you were so firmly standing on is just pulled from underneath of you and you're left feeling disoriented. You feel like you don't know who you are. You feel like you are experiencing this sense of disconnection. You might feel like a stranger to yourself and to your own body. You might process things completely different than the way that you used to process them. Conversations that you might be having that used to feel good no longer resonate with you, or people in your life that you used to spend a lot of time with no longer align with you, or even the family members that you might have. You might have been people pleasing within your own family, and suddenly you're just like, you know what? This is no longer for me. And if you're feeling that right now, I want you to know that number one, you're not crazy. Number two, you are not alone. And number three, there's a very divine reason, greater than our own conscious minds can fathom, greater than words are going to be able to express, that is unfolding right before us in this moment right now. And if you're feeling this sense of disorientation, know that it's okay to lose the mind. The mind is simply an instrument. You have a mind, but you are not your mind. It is an instrument. It's an instrument that you can use to operate in the world as a human being. And as a human being that has a role and a duty and a responsibility. So being that I've experienced this, I'll tell you, it was a couple weeks ago. I moved down to Florida. And I had this drink that was supposed to be super healthy. It's supposed to be super relaxing for you. And I ended up feeling really sick a few days later. I had one cup one day on a Friday, another cup on a Saturday. and they're called kava drinks or kratom drinks. And, you know, it's promoted as something that is healthy. It's a plant that comes from Southeast Asia or Hawaii, and it creates feelings of relaxation or focus or whatever it is. So I'm just having a raspberry lemonade drink with a little bit of this. It's just as if I'm drinking a matcha, which I absolutely love, right? And then a few days later, I started having these visceral experience of throwing up and just feeling very, very weak. I was lying still for a couple of days. I felt winded after going for a little walk. I wasn't able to hold any food down in my body. And I realized down the road, it was like a few days later after I was going through this, and so many things were ruled negative, like COVID and pregnancy, which I knew that I didn't have. I knew that it was something completely different. I did a meditation with my belly and really tuned into the consciousness of my womb. And what came through for me was to message or type in this message in Google, liver toxic and kratom. And I realized that my liver wasn't able to process kratom. Now that's on the very surface level. And at a deeper level, an energetic level, my body was desiring to go through this detoxification of all the energetics within it that are ready to be released, to create space, to hold space for a higher consciousness, for a higher vibration and a higher frequency. One that is completely contrast than what we have ever experienced before. And we have not experienced this as a human race. And so as it began to settle, it started becoming a lot more clear. So if you've been feeling burnt out, if you've been feeling exhausted, tired, depleted, sick, if you don't know why suddenly that you don't feel as connected to your body, you feel like you're in your mind a lot, maybe you're binge eating, maybe you're taking it out on food, or maybe you're binge watching TV, whatever that is, the body has different ways, or the mind has different ways of coping when things like this happen. So I'm going to explain this to you in a very simple way. This is the process of human and spiritual ascension. And I'm going to explain this to you in a way that honors the ancient wisdom that has been around for thousands and thousands of years, that is created this experience, this new level of functionality, is almost as if it's being reintroduced to a humanity that has been completely disconnected and robotic. Because we spend so much time doing this, and doing this, and doing this. Just tuning in to a television that's telling us the vision instead of us telling ourselves our own vision. So here's how I'll explain this to you. It's very similar to a seed. When a seed, or before a seed grows, it goes through a germination process. And what happens is the seed that is inside is seeking moisture, and as it's seeking moisture, the seed begins to crack. And when the seed cracks, the roots that are within the seed start to make its way out towards oxygen, light, water, so that it can begin to become nourished, so that it can grow. And as this seed begins to become nourished and grow, it turns into this huge towering tree, just like that palm tree that you see right behind me. And it has a responsibility. It has a responsibility. And the responsibility and the duty of this seed that has now become this towering tree is to, number one, live in its highest and fullest intention. Number two, provide oxygen for the rest of humanity. Number 3, provide resources. Where does our money come from? Where do our papers that we write on come from? Where do our checkbooks come from? Where do our homes come from? How are they built? The tree, in its infinite resourceful nature, because it is living in its highest expression, is now carrying a responsibility of giving and receiving to the rest of the world. So your human and spiritual ascension, just as mine, is very similar to a seed. Our old selves, our old paradigms, our old systems, our governmental systems, our healthcare systems, our medical systems, our school systems, our family systems, all of the systems that we have been born into is no longer going to be sustainable for where it is that we are going. And as humanity, we must rise beyond the outdated paradigms that we've been living in. So just as that seed was seeking for moisture, right? When you're going through this human and spiritual process, sometimes the reason why we feel so depleted is because we are craving, we are seeking for moisture, nourishment. Just like that seed, we're seeking for nourishment, and not just nourishment that comes from drinking water or comes from eating healthy food, but nourishment that feeds our soul. Because for such a long time, we've been made to feel wrong to do things that feed our soul. It just simply doesn't make sense. Do what makes you money. Do what pays the bills. But feeding your soul, no. And in doing so, we've become robotic, and we're too exhausted to enjoy life. We're too exhausted to have play and fun. We're too exhausted to be who it is that we truly are. Because we're stuck in these old ways of being, these old systems, these old structures. So that seed contains your old self. That seed contains the old versions of you and the outdated systems. And as you seek for nourishment, that seed is going to completely break. It's going to crack wide open. Have you been feeling like, I'm just cracking wide open? Have you been feeling like, oh my goodness, now that I finally stopped resisting this, whew, here I am cracked wide open. If you're feeling that sense of being cracked wide open, it's that same experience that that seed is going through. And here's the most beautiful part. When we crack open, we're going to go through a period of mourning our old selves. The things that we used to love, that used to bring us joy, that used to excite us, that used to make sense, the people that we used to look up to, the leaders that we used to learn from, the podcasts that we used to tune into, all of that is just going to not resonate anymore. And you got to mourn. You got to take the time to step away from the devices and all the ways of being that you used to operate from, and give yourself space to mourn. Give yourself space to grieve the old versions of you. Be cracked wide open. Allow yourself to fully release. Just let go. Surrender into it a little bit more. Ask yourself, can I surrender into this feeling just a little bit more? because for such a long time we've been working against our own nature. Especially as women, we have these beautiful cyclical ways of being with our menstrual cycles, right? Cycles, cyclical. Just like the way nature is. Just like the purest form of the Divine Mother, Mother Earth, is. And when we force ourselves to do things against our own nature, we're reverting back to those old patterns. We're resisting it. But what would happen if we just feel it? If we just feel it a little bit longer, without judging it, without making it mean anything, without identifying with it, without attaching ourselves to it, just allowing ourselves to feel it. And as you begin to feel it a little bit more, you'll begin to tune into your body wisdom in a way that you never have before, or maybe you have hundreds of years ago. And you have simply forgotten. Can you remember? Can you remember what it was like to be in your purest form before you began to adopt what the world wanted you to be? Can you remember that? That's what it feels like to stay cracked wide open. And I'll tell you, I resisted this for a really long time. I resisted it and I resisted it and I resisted it, and I just kept going about in my life, doing the things that I thought, hey, I'm living in my purpose. I am living in my highest expression, right? The ego is very funny. It justifies. It does anything to make it right. But what's more powerful than what you know is what you don't know. What's more powerful than the things that you can attain intellectually is what you don't know. It's the mystery, it's the unknown. And when you allow yourself to crack wide open, you are living in the unknown. And what's going to happen next is so beautiful. You begin to heal, you begin to flourish, just like that tiny seed became a towering tree that blesses our human eyes, that we think is, oh, so beautiful, that provides the oxygen for us to breathe. Just like that. Just like that. It can be the same experience for you. You are here to live in your highest expression, in your purest form. And right now, anything that is no longer serving you, if it's falling away, just let it. Just let it. If relationships that you have in your life are no longer serving you, what are you doing holding on so tight? I mean, doesn't this hurt after a while? Doesn't it feel so much better to just let it go? To just be who you are? You are here to be in your highest expression. And what that looks like is completely unique to you. Just like my fingerprint is completely different than your fingerprint, you are here to serve and be in your highest expression in your own unique way. You are the guru. But you must find that place within yourself where you can access your own divinity. And it begins to feel safe. The sense of belonging. The sense of knowing within the unknown. So deeply that you cannot deny it, that you cannot pre-plan it, that you cannot justify it, that you cannot logically, practically try to explain everything. I mean, some things, words simply are not enough to explain. And I know that's what you feel like, that you don't know how to process this, or you don't know how to explain this. And you're not alone. There's so much of this universe that we don't even know about, that science has barely caught up to. We're only caught up to probably about 5%. And the rest is a mystery. So can you be in the mystery? Because when you know your truth, you have a responsibility. So just like you have that responsibility when you know your truth, you must listen to it, right? And that is the only reason why I am here today. Not because it felt like something that I needed to do because my ego was telling me or I wanted to. There was just no question about it. It's my duty. It's my responsibility. All having responsibility means is having the ability to respond when you're being guided by that greater intelligence, by that higher force. And you can call it God, you can call it universe, you can call it Jesus, you can call it Mary, you can call it Lakshmi, you can call it Buddha, you can call it whatever you want. When that higher intelligence is guiding you, you have a responsibility, the ability to respond and to take action accordingly. And so today, or no, it wasn't today, it was yesterday, I had a conversation with my COO, Chelsea, and I also had a conversation with my CFO, the woman who manages my finances, and I told them both the same thing. Just as the ego goes through an ego death in order to ascend or hold the consciousness of a higher vibration, our business is also a consciousness, and the business is going to go through a business death. And I told my teams, look, when I started my business, when I started my wellness, my online business, my wellness practice, the vehicle of transformation, the vehicle of service, I was insecure. I was not as stable. I was constantly seeking out there for how to market this beautiful work and this message. And I was learning all these new systems and strategies and ways of doing things. And I told them, anything that we have ever done before is just, it's dying. Just like a snake that sheds its old skin. Our business is dying. It's going through a business death. And I actually call this a dharma death. And we all experience this, where now it is ready to evolve into something that is so much denser, that is so enriching, that I can't possibly seek out there for information on how to do it. I can't. And I surrender to that finally. And so what's ahead? I just know that I'm here, and I'm here to serve. And I'm going to show up in a way that feels divinely guided, where I am tuning into the highest alignment of what comes up. That I am being the instrument. That Sandy and her life becomes a message and a story and perhaps an example. And I don't doubt it. I no longer am in the space of doubting what this is. This thing that is so unfathomable that you cannot hide behind your words. You just got to show up and be it. So if you're going through this right now, I want you to know that it's okay. It's okay to allow yourself to just fully unravel, because we are undoing years and years and years and years, thousands of years of so much. And I was going for a walk this morning. I don't have the book with me, but I'll share with you what came through as I was walking. It's a few sentences. I hear the calling of my ancestors. I hear the whispers of my ascended masters. Step by step, inch by inch, I move, and the path unfolds before me. So your path will unfold before you, step by step. Don't try to pre-plan it. Don't try to judge it. Don't go back to your old ways of being. Give yourself validation and permission that finally comes from you to allow it to unfold. I am sending you so much love. And for this week, I invite you to just take time. Take time for you. Unplug from what feels like, what felt familiar. Become familiar with the unfamiliar. Rest if you need to rest. Take yourself away from your phones if you need to take yourself away from your phones. Your outer relationships, including your business and everything that's outside of you, is you. So prioritize this time with yourself. That's what matters the most. And simply become an observer of your own mind and notice what comes up for you. I'm sending you so much love. We are in this together, and I will see you very soon.